Hey y'all, today we're putting together a tool cart for the workshop. I've got a lot of big tools that I don't use often, but I need handy for when I do use them, and someplace easy to store them, but also keep them out of the way. To do this, I'm also going to start practicing some mortise and tenon joinery. I still haven't built my workbench for the shop, and I'm thinking that's what I want to do for it, but I want to put in some practice and see if that's going to be something that's feasible for me. In order to do that, I need a way to actually cut out the tenons, and so I'm building a quick jig here to help me make those cuts on my table saw. Simple as that. When you have the right jig, it makes the job so much simpler. After cleaning up the tenons, it was time to mark for and dig out the mortises. After marking the spots, I used my drill to get out most of the material, and then ended up cleaning the rest of it out with chisels. And of course a mismeasurement, but that's a simple fix by cutting down the tenon some so that it will fit in the mortise. Being sure to chamfer these corners, and you saw me use the chisel to knock down the long edges, really does make it a lot more simple to get these joints together. After reassembling, you have to mark on the tenon where this hole needs to be drilled to complete the peg through it. So after marking it, pulling it back apart, you then drill the hole through the tenon slightly offset so that the draw bore action when you put the peg through it will really pull this joint tight. I cut down some dowels, and again, it's important to round off those edges to make this easily seatable when you're trying to put it through here. A little bit of tension there is good, and it really does create a nice joint. After flush cutting all of the pegs, it was time to start on the longer stretchers. I cut out a shelf on the two bottom ones here for the floor to sit on. You'll see how that works in a minute. These side stretchers are all being put together with glue and pocket holes. I did create a set of plans for this build. I did it doing only pocket hole joinery though. This mortise and tenon is really for me to practice and to learn more about how to do it. So the plans that I have on my website have this whole construction with just pocket holes and regular screws. It's never too early to make it mobile. Getting all the casters on allows me to get it moving around the workshop, and then I had to put on the other bracing for the bottom shelf that goes in this build. One on each side and one down the middle. You can see how the shelves on the two long stretchers match the height of those three cross pieces we just installed, so that here when we put the bottom on, it lays flush against the rest of the frame. Now I'm adding skirts to allow this, as I'm going to have some rolling things on the bottom of this. So I space them up about an inch and then put them in with pocket holes. I put the space in there, that way it's easier to get all of the dust and debris vacuumed or blown out. I then attached the worktop. I went ahead and put a edge band across all the sides. The front and back have an actual thick 1.5 inch by 3/4 inch board, but for the side pieces, I just used some of the scrap from milling down the construction lumber. Really, this is just a personal preference to hide the plywood. Now I do have some bigger boxes for my circular saw and biscuit cutter and a few other things that I want to store on here as well. So at this one side, I'm adding sidewalls. And then I'm adding some supports for a few shelves. You see the shelves just sit in. And those shelves and shelf supports are inset by 1/4 inch in the back. The reason for that is when I put on a backer here to again help keep the dust out, it sits flush with the edge of the plywood, and here I'm just attaching it with brad nails through the backboard into those shelf supports. Again, not a big fan of the exposed plywood, so I use more of those offcuts to just create some edge banding for both the shelf fronts as well as this exposed plywood here on the back, cleaning up the seam between these two pieces. But this is just personal preference. And then I added the last stretcher across the bottom. Now to finish it, it is a shop project, but I do like these things to look nice. So I did cut off the corners here, spend some time puttying holes and any big gaps. And then I did apply several coats of a water-based poly after sanding to give it a good durable finish. Now with the main cart complete as in the plans, it's time to customize it to how I want to use it. So my two big tools I'm putting on top are my miter saw and my drill press. Reason for that is these are both tools that I use occasionally, but are not main priorities for me in this workshop. I know a lot of people would see this big garage wall behind here and want to build a big miter saw stand or whatnot, but to me that's not well-used space there. I don't use my miter saw for detailed cuts, so it's just something I use for rough cutting. But having these two next to each other, I know I need to have the space so that the drill press doesn't get in the way of boards going over the side. So I raised up my miter saw so that the natural position of a board clears the drill press, and then I can actually raise that drill press stand to use to hold longer boards for the miter saw. The drill press also gets attached to the top, so both of those won't move during transportation. Now this side, I spaced these shelves again specific to hold these big cases. My biscuit cutter, my table saw, my corded electric drill, and my Forstner bits. I did mount this so I could plug all my cords into here and then one cord into the wall. And then I'm upgrading my dust collection. I'm adding one of these dust cyclones here, as well as this nifty expandable hose I got from Rockler. Not sponsored, don't do those, but this has actually been really neat. It comes with these different attachments that you attach to your tools. And then when you need it, you just take it, it expands. This one hose expands up to 12 feet. You attach it, you're able to then just use it as needed. And then when you don't need it, you just unattach it and it will sit there in the cart. Now you can see why I put that fencing around the bottom to help hold all that in. Well, that is a big relief. That is a lot of big tools that now have a permanent home. They're easy to get to, but they're also out of the way. And this will be a well-used area. Not every tool gets well-used a lot, but between all these tools, they all need to be handy. This workshop's really coming along. We've made a lot of progress on this. So thanks for stopping by, and we will see you on the next project. Thanks.